Yeah? 1 second.
There are no
Yes. Donna, do you want some,
yeah, you're gonna be watching.
we're all just watching. Right.
Wait, who is? Yeah, Max.
So we're all watching.
The whole world? What? Oh,
That's why you're on side. Okay, welcome everyone to our Saturday evening meeting. For those of you who are new, we meet here every other week from 6 p.m. till 7:30. During the first 45 minutes or so, we generally have a speaker discuss the week's topic, and then there will be open discussion for the remainder. Everyone is encouraged to bring any resources, experience, or knowledge they may have to share. The success of this group depends heavily on participation. Our mission is to provide resources and support to all members of the transgender community, building relationships through fellowship and understanding. There is no fee for your participation. We ask only that you give what you can. Bless you. And if you cannot give, please come anyway. We have refreshments and information on the side table. Please help yourself. Tonight we are going to talk about Tuesday. But before we start, let's take a moment to go around and introduce ourselves. If you have a preferred pronoun, please be sure to mention that as well. I will start. My name is Brianna, and I'm a girl. Please call me Girl Set.
I'm Diane, female, female pronouns. Thank you.
Jean, female pronouns.
Amanda, female pronouns. Marina, female pronouns. Maxwell, female. Amy, no preference.
This Lee, female pronouns.
Amanda, female pronouns.
Jeff.
Rhonda, whatever.
Hey, you.
Sheila, female.
Eight, no.
Thank you, so much. Right. And Liz, are you ready and willing to start us off?
I am.
Oh, they're saying. Hey, Naomi.
Yeah, we should actually
Introduction.
have introductions from people on the web too, because we have a few people who are joining us through here, and I should also say, for you who are watching remotely, that if, because right now we've got, for anyone who's got their webcam, which right now is only Naomi, that we can see you, and probably anyone else who's looking can see you and us. If more people turn those on and you start to see more screens like that, if you want, you can restrict just to the person who's talking by clicking on the thing that says webcams, then picking the option for just displaying whoever's talking now. Otherwise, it'll just show all of the people. So give me just a second here. I thought I was ready, and I'm almost ready. Okay, not quite as ready as I thought I was.
Are you having technical difficulties, Liz?
Only minor ones. There we go.
What does the box stand for?
There we go. So everyone who's online, if you want to introduce yourselves, if you feel like it. Anyone?
I'm Naomi. I'm from Hope for Youth. I'm the LGBTQ case manager. And I don't know if I'll be able to stay for the whole meeting. I might have to dip out early because my nephew is coming for a slumber party last minute. So, but hi, Jeff should have some, and Liz should have some information about me and Hope for Youth and our LGBTQ event that we're having on November 29th. So please see Jeff for that. Thanks.
Anyone else? Well, in fact, there are two areas that I thought of for discussion. And the first one is probably fairly short, and the second one is longer. The first one would be some of the practical implications that could come about from this. Because a lot of people are really worried about what could happen to us, to our community, to future members of our community, based off of who our next president is going to be and his appointments. That's one area, and really we don't really know that much about what will happen. We know some of what could, but we don't know what will. And there may not be that much we can do about some of it except for preparation. And the other one too is that what I think people are having more trouble with, at least from what I've seen online from people and from conversations, is, of course, we're fairly upset about this. Most of us are at least. And there's a lot of anger at the people who voted for Trump. And considering that's about half of the country that voted for slightly less than half of the people who voted for Trump. And how do we deal with that? And what does that mean for people? I think that has to do not just with what his policies are, but the tone of the election as it went on. So that would be more of just an open discussion rather than something where we would look at what possibilities there are. And now this is, again, I'm just making kind of a guess here as far as my guess is as good as anyone else's, but I guess as far as what types of legal implications that we can have for this. For the people online, can you see the screen that I've just put up?
Yeah, I can see it. I don't know if anyone else can.
Okay. So legal at risk. These are things that some of the people are somewhat worried about. But I think that there are different levels of what the risk really is. There are certain things that are probably the highest at risk, and those things would be things that were just done by executive order and executive policy. And things that I can think of that would apply to, that would have probably the biggest impact would be any changes to how passports are given out, how changes are made to them, because it was really actually only a fairly recent thing within the last few years that we were able to change gender on a passport without as much documentation as used to be required. And that's been something that's been a real boon to us, and that's something that could go away. Then something that's a little bit less at risk would be federal law, just because federal law would have to go through Congress and President. I'm not sure how many federal laws there are that would really be impacted by changes. I'm not really sure how much of our protections come from actual federal law, like laws that are passed. State law, people are worried about that, but that one's a little bit more variable because I'm really very little of that is controlled by the federal government. States, there could be it could be part of a trend in states towards restricting rights, like we saw in North Carolina and Georgia and other places where people have wanted to make some of those things. This is probably an indicator of some of those changes coming along, but not directly impacting it. And places that are safe could stay relatively safe. Places that are in danger may have been in danger either way. And then probably the lowest one of risk, even though this one that gets a lot of attention, there would be things that have been mandated by the Supreme Court. So the biggest one I can think of that affects our community is same-sex marriage. Within there, because same-sex marriage has the 5-3 majority, so in order for that to be overturned, first you have to have at least some turnover in the court, replacements, and then usually the court doesn't like to just right away overturn something that they've already ruled on. Usually take some steps before they'll do so. It's pretty rare for them to just right away switch something.
I don't know if they can just go back and switch the laws that they've already judged or ruled on. I think that'd have to be a new bill introduced and then passed, and of course the president then sign off on it. And then what it would do is it would go through the legal courts all the way back up to the Supreme Court. Like, I mean, it's a bad example, but Roe v. Wade. they chipped at the corners of the brick, but they never replaced it. So they modified the law a little bit, but they weren't able to take the whole brick away.
Yeah,
So-
that's a far more likely outcome than being something more like Roe v. Wade, where they try to chip away at the ends. So the chance of it just being wholesale overturned is really actually quite low.
And the other thing to add on to that, the courts, the Supreme Court still has the same people, even though our politicians have changed somewhat. So the likelihood of the same-sex marriage thing in particular being overturned is not likely because it was 5-4 to begin with, and everybody's still the same. So that they're going to change their opinion simply because
Unless,
of
of
that
course,
one guy being our president.
Ginsburg drops out for in 4 years. Then that's the problem.
Or can I,
Yeah. Got it.
yeah, Ginsburg and Kennedy are probably the ones that are most at risk.
I don't give her any more than 2 years.
Yeah,
She's gone.
yeah.
She's been talking.
And then we have a big problem.
Mm-hmm. She should have retired. She should have retired. Well, I guess not within the last year because that didn't work very well.
She was just waiting for this.
So within task force, because we did have a change in that, and again, that's something that came out of State Department, controlled by State Department, and I can't remember if it was actually Hillary or not, who was in charge of the State Department when those requirements changed, when the regulations changed, and how you can change the gender within them. I don't know how likely it is that they would switch that back to older requirements, or even make them more stringent than they used to be, but it's a possibility. There's a lot of people concerned about them at least dropping back to what they were before. And so like, we have 70 days in order to get some of our documentation in order. I think for state documentation, there's not quite that worried because the federal government doesn't have that much to do with how you're able to change your gender markers on your driver license or your birth certificate. But that's for this, that's the one that does get affected. There's also the
So that affects somebody who already has a passport, though.
well,
In the
that's
last 5 years?
Seven.
7.
So wait, what would be the documentation needed should they take that away?
I think you have to get surgery. I think it requires.
It used to, yes.
Yeah.
Used to have a birth certificate. It was around that birth certificate. On your passport.
Whoever should get this, you know.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good to go.
There's no kind of different.
You got an amended birth
There's
certificate,
no
you're
way for
fine.
them to know.
Yeah.
You're good.
But that does put a little bit of pressure on those who do not have law.
Exactly.
Not everybody was born in freaking San Diego.
But it's a little bit easy in the sense that we haven't had trouble with judges and it was like cool, it was less than 30-day process. As soon as you're on the docket, judge was like 5-minute process. Then we mailed it into the Minnesota Department of Health. And weeks later, and $90 later, this Eric was born at Eric mail.
So that was Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay, so Minnesota.
Granted. But fairly school. Sorry.
It was easy too. So I set in a money order and then the documents.
Yeah.
And then I changed it, so.
We actually got attorneys
These aren't new. We both did it and actually told us, so you might be on it.
Well,
Yeah.
attorney, this attorney was down south.
Yes.
And this was about 15 years ago.
While we're on the topic, does anybody have, sorry if I interrupted, does anybody have any other questions about going about any of that stuff that feels under the gun about any of this? I think we probably have that information here to help anybody who wants to get that stuff changed before
I like how you all look,
the evil takes over. Huh?
I like how you all look for it. All three of them were like,
Well, didn't you just have yours done?
yeah.
So here's card, you have to look at it again.
They look like.
Here's the birth certificate that we don't have yet. Yeah. He was born at birthday, but okay.
It'll be easy to. We can update the new.
Well, I figure I actually physically have a big certificate now. So I figured.
It's actually not that hard. Only piece of paper that you have. It's super easy.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
So then you have $66.
Right.
Are you having the total replat?
Yes.
Yes.
For changing name and gender, that's, you know, like, you can get, and then back and get, they do it all that. Because, I mean, you get your permit to, marijuana, that, you know, before he goes forward with anything, so that when he does get a passport, there's no.
That was so much easier for me to get mine because of that.
It just get more complex when you are born in a different state. So for me, because I got my name changed here, but I was born in Indiana. And so
I know someone from there.
you know,
So
so
you used to elect the office?
oh yeah, a nice guy, right?
Super nice.
And they really are not a particularly LGBT-friendly state.
Imagine
So what did you do?
So now, luckily, I don't know what the laws are within who were born in Indiana and who are trying to change it when you're not. There's states where it's easier if you're outside of the state, and that may be one of them, because they had a court ruling within their state that said if there was a court order from another state to change it, that they would follow it. Now, so that was that's again case by case, because if a records department in one state gets a court order to say to change something, well, generally you have to follow that, but they're under a different jurisdiction than generally the one that they get it from.
Yeah.
So then it starts, that's when they have, it goes to a public court and other things, and they finally decide how those things get handled. So that's why sometimes the rules vary by state, and then they vary by state to state. So now Indiana is one of those ones where a Minnesota court order will get them to the change. So I worked with when I was getting my name change, I worked with the clerk to figure out which laws were applied, and then and I said, degree, and gave it to me. In fact, I didn't even intend to use it, because this was about a year and a half ago, and it was before North Carolina happened. So I felt like I don't even know where my birth certificate is. I haven't used it in decades. Because ever since I got my passport, I haven't. I changed. It's like to me, it seemed like a historical record that I didn't even need to be changed until all of a sudden it needed to be changed. And so that I sat on it until then, and then I essentially as quick as I could.
You've got your birth certificate, your passport without a birth certificate?
Yeah, now all it takes is it's almost equivalent to what it takes to get a driver's license in Minnesota, which is essentially a doctor's note. That's it.
When did you do that?
ID, you change your ID first.
When did you do your?
Not after I got my driver's license. So probably about 4 weeks after I got my driver's license.
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't get mine, and I didn't get my.
And they don't require a birth certificate anymore, yeah.
Well,
It must have just changed it.
I think he's already
Yeah,
had one, so I think it, even though I had to go through a new, well, what I did is I sent in my old one with the application. So they use that as it, because that plus the court order for the name change, plus the doctor's note saying that they could change the gender on there, then they changed it.
Oh, we had to have our birth certificate
First, right, and that's how it was before.
Yeah.
And then what were the requirements for changing birth certificates?
Well, we had surgery.
And that was in Minnesota, right? Did you have birth certificates from Minnesota?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's changed, and so both of those things have changed. The passport part, if they try to do something to change the passport procedure for it, it would affect just the passport part of it, because Minnesota state law determines how we can update birth certificates in Minnesota. And I don't think that they could even do anything about cross-state birth certificates at a federal level. But it'd still be a pain. But if they did do something like
I
that,
would urge everybody to do it.
yeah, do as much as you can as soon as you can. Because again, like what we saw in Kansas was that not long after North Carolina was built, that they changed their things so that you could not change your birth certificate anymore under any circumstances.
What state is that?
Kansas. And so if under the old rules for getting your passport changed, you can't get your passport changed if if they roll back to that and you have your birth certificate from candidates. So that would be bad news for people. It wouldn't necessarily be bad news for everyone, but it would be inconsistent. I mean, it's inconsistent now, but at least the passport thing is consistent. And there's also and I don't think that this would ever happen because it would be a bureaucratic nightmare. But they could go back over the census, whenever they change that policy, go through their records and retroactively undo those changes. Now, how they'd actually handle calling back the passport, but maybe do something like if you went back for a renewal, they say, oh, you can't keep your gender on here anymore because that happened then, and now you have to reapply under the new rules. But again, it seems like it would be very difficult to do.
More than likely, they grandfather those in.
Mhm.
That's pretty much what they do because they don't want the hassle of trying to retrace everything. So there's a lot of things that don't grandfather in. So if you had it changed already, they just do it. But a lot of these things, like the governor of North Carolina, he's in the tight race right now. He ain't quite over yet. He did lose the general election, but now they're doing a recount. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins. Cooper, this last I saw, 9,000 votes ahead. So, you know, be more interested in losing your job and having one or two people use the bathroom that they need to. And of course, if you're the one losing your job, you know, so a lot of the states it's going broke, and that's what's making that election is before you used to win in landslides. So the state's very upset with everything going on.
Well, they lost a lot of money overhead already. People don't have to lose money.
Then the last area would be some of the state law stuff, and I think that's one of the things that people don't like about the election and how it happened is just the tone that came along with it. And I think a lot of people are worried that that will extend to people thinking that now some of this behavior is acceptable, that things have been normalized that were never considered to be acceptable before. And if that is correct, which it might be, that maybe that will also extend to legislation down to the state level, and that there will be more hardline type legislation against us at the state level, which will put some of the gains that we've made at risk. And so it's a possibility, but it's hard to really gauge how, where and when that could happen. I mean, Minnesota feels fairly safe, but again,
As you say, take them at face value. Who he is counting are bright party.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to take what they're saying at face value.
Mm-hmm.
His top guys you can create it. His vice president is someone you have to really hear.
God forbid the Trump guys we are in.
Oh my God.
We are really in big trouble.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing with getting in, people are like, oh, I can't see Trump.
What they've done to us over
No.
just the past 5 years, 10 years is incredible what they've tried to slide through. And you've got to take them at face value now. If you don't, you're going to wind up in big trouble. In other words, be afraid. Be afraid, watch your back. Because they could very well come for you.
But on that note, and this was kind of segueing into the other topic of the night, and I agree that being a hatred, I think of the boy that was just murdered who was Saudi Arabian, and that was prior to the election. Was it where was Wisconsin? Eau Claire, right? It wasn't far.
Across.
Okay. Yeah, just recently, and it's being declared a hate crime. And so the thought that I'm having, and the articles, some of the articles I've read have been, I wonder, not that this is, so the people that voted for Trump did so based on a misguided economic hope. They're in small towns that had a single factory, and that single factory died, and they, all of them are desperately, economically depressed, and they look at us in the big city, and they think, like, we're in this bubble and we don't hear them, we don't understand them. And so therefore, they lashed out because they wanted to be heard, but they did so based on economic reasons, maybe not because they would ever take a hateful, bigoted, even if they had that hateful, bigoted, thought, that they wouldn't necessarily act out on it. Not to say that Trump didn't like churn that up in all of his, every one of his campaign rallies, but certainly that element was there. And certainly there's already been like the KKs like doing marches across like highways. So clearly like they feel like they've had a victory. But I'd like to think if we look at 100% of the voters that turned out for Trump, I'd like to think that maybe only 20% of those actually hold those hateful views. And maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I'd like to think that disenfranchised people who are below the poverty level maybe constituted a larger number of those people, rather than truly hateful and like feeling of harm. Maybe I'm being massively naive, but this is my hope.
I've been thinking about that breakdown myself too, because I sense, or did sense leading up to the election that, and frustration, so, we confidently were taking the person we're trying to play, yeah. And that not everybody voting for Trump is always I think there's another group that maybe falls in between just that type that maybe some would classify this as just a type of hateful person, but the kind you didn't want to bother to really respect. People of different religions and not connect, like actually does makes sense, but just not wanting to be told that their word might there was no comment of them.
Getting to another sister, an anti-Muslim, she has a transgender grandchild when she lost. She said it to him. And she did so because she said that when she was a Christian Muslim. She literally posted something that was some BS thing that had already been debunked on snopes. This would have been 1952 law that said that no Muslim immigrant was allowed to immigrate here. And I thought, it was like, Google, woman, Google. You will find this is total nonsense. And so it's that kind of, I don't know, ignorance or this like lack of education. Yeah. People are not educating themselves on what is actually real. Yes. And that's what is beyond frustrating to me. That's exactly.
I think the problem with small towns is that they're isolated. And as a result, they're ignorant.
Hard to say that in the world of social media. I would say that, oh, that's your excuse.
Social media is completely different from the reality. It's reality.
I just feel like that's a little bit of an excuse for people though.
Oh, I know. That isolation makes some easy pickings for those speakers that are out there that are making the rounds in the small towns. I lived in Hutchinson, Minnesota for 4 years back in the early 80s and saw, before social media, I'm a lot older than I look, and saw what it's like when you're isolated way out there. There was like a B rock band that came to town, and the high school principal was like, yeah, we're going to have this rock band down there. Because that would be like their only opportunity to go see a rock band. So with that isolation, they'll get whatever comes to them. And we've done the job of going to them. Trying to do the job.
And social media, they get out of it what they want. They only go to the sites they want.
I do that. I only go to the sites.
And Facebook dials you into what you look at, what you want to see. So that's all they get. They get conspiracy theorists. They get all that media that we would consider as crazy. That's what they listen to. That's what they get. We live in a small town. I work in a factory in a small town. I can tell you, I'm the only Democrat in there. They would hate me if they knew who I was. I've been there, I've done it, I was in Rush City. I owned a business, I was respectable. People would come to my shop every day, this was back in the 90s and early 2000s. After they found out about me, my kids were beat up. This is a town of 3,000. They take my house. I lost most all of my customers. Small towns are not cool. It's no place to transition. In the city, stay there.
Now, just so you know, because some people are having trouble hearing us because of the distance for the microphones here to here, so I'm going to move this to here. We won't get as good of a view of them, but they'll at least be able to hear us. So just so you know what I'm doing.
And I still apologize for being late. I thought it started at 6:30, and I'm brand new. I've not done anything with you guys. If there are ground rules, I apologize but if you can let me know if there's anything unusual in terms beyond confidentiality and speak about your own stuff. Dramatic events that have happened since the election, is that fodder, or should I pretend?
Yeah, so
That's part of it.
our topic. There are no ground rules to our group. Basically, our focus is people who are in transition, and most of the topics are dealing with people who are in transition. But all are welcome, parents, friends, family, those who are also in transition. So that's basically.
My kiddos walking was hit by a car the morning after the election, with ice cream and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So, physically, not too bad, but we all know that's not the worst part. And living way down in Cottage Grove, having to take public transit everywhere, I've said, I will drive you, because you're not feeling safe right now. So especially if there are ways of connecting with folks that are doing those support kinds of things, that's my 100-day plan. Chuck has a 100-day plan, I have a 100-day plan. Mine starts
We also
a couple days
offer
ago.
some coffee, if you'd like, some snacks that you can have. Feel free to help yourself.
Is anybody else even aware there was like a conservative candidate for the running under the Independence Party ticket? His name was Evan McMullen.
Yeah.
I
He
didn't
was
even
supposed to
realize
get an
that
electoral
until-
vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like in Utah, but I didn't even realize he was in the race. Not that I was going to vote for him, but I didn't even realize he was in the race until like Sunday. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, there was a conservative candidate maybe for people who were looking for one if they had been aware of him, but I think, his name probably didn't enter the conversation.
Name
for a lot of
recognition is
people.
everything. Think about
Right.
the people who vote because, whoever they voted for, because it's the name they heard the most. Well, whose name did we hear the most?
Well, the other thing is the third party candidate was not in all states, and, like there was one in Florida that got 7% of the vote. And that was huge, because they figured they pulled enough votes away from Hillary to swing the state of Florida. And that's a huge amount of electoral votes, So every time, the system ain't really rigged up, or it's not set up for a third party candidate. To get to 270, you can't have three major parties. It won't work, the math don't come out right. And then what happens is it goes to the Speaker of the House, and he can point anyone in the nation. If he just liked you, he could just point, and you'd be the president. So the system, it used to be Whigs and Democrats, and the Republicans came along, and the Democrats were winning, so the two groups actually merged. And that's what happened to the Whigs. They went away, and the Republicans came forward.
I heard that the Electoral College has not actually placed their final votes, that they tend to be elected officials, they're not anonymous.
Correct.
We can lobby them between now and December 19th because they don't actually have to vote for Donald Trump. Because
And they follow the people.
Hillary got the vote.
188,000.
Well, that happened also.
Predict to be close to
I know that was
2
Gore v. Bush.
Yep, and it was the same thing, you know, Bush made that statement that the majority of people elected me and then he had to be corrected. No, you weren't by the popular vote.
Right. I don't know. I don't want to hope, but I am thinking of lobbying.
Well, it might work, you know, but I don't know if people. I don't think it would be this way, but, you know, it's always worth a shot.
Anything you can do is better than nothing at this time. Anything.
So thank you. I have family in Ohio that didn't vote for Trump, that would feel vehement about it. And I can tap them. It would matter less here.
Well, even this state was up for grabs for quite a while. They didn't declare the winner until the next day at what, 11 o'clock or 11:30? So it was that close. If they were to have a recount, it might be even closer. So it was extremely close. They didn't color our state blue until, like I said, the day after at 11:30.
Yeah, but we don't own the Senate anymore anyways. And they already got the House.
Right.
So the only thing we got is the governorship.
But the good thing with governorship, or whatever one they necessarily try to do for the next 2 years, he's going to veto. They don't have enough to override the veto.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we have in our favor.
So they're gonna,
favor in
and
the
they're gonna
state.
call him that he's obstructing, and then what's
Well,
gonna
they-
happen in 2 years?
Well, in 2 years, of course, we'll have a new vote, and this is again why it's very important that people get out and vote, especially for your ideas and who you are.
Does anybody remember Tim Pawlenty
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
gosh.
and what he did to our state? And how long he was in office?
Yeah.
I'll probably do it again.
You never know.
History seems to repeat itself.
Well, if that's the case, you can also remember Reagan was going to change everything, and he tried like that. I mean, one of his biggest things was anti-porn and anti, Playboy and penthouse and all that. He tried like crazy to outlaw it. Now look at it. Everybody's got another phone. So sometimes it doesn't always work because technology pushes things past that. I mean, he tried to make a lot of stuff and he failed at most of them too. So, I mean, there were some things that were passed, but again, there is checks and balances in place, and whatever laws that you try to pass through, most of them are going to be challenged in the court, and it'll work its way up through the court. Biggest things, like you said, the nominees and who's in there, even if they get a real conservative judge this time around, Kennedy is the swing vote, and he's pretty much been on the liberal side of things. So, and he went in conservative. So when people get to the Supreme Court, they change.
Does anybody here got any problems with what could happen in healthcare?
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
And
Trump is already-
what they're doing with their healthcare right now?
Yeah, Trump is
I can tell you, it
already-
didn't used to be that way. The only company that used to have anything to do with transgender people back in the early 2000s and the 90s and prior to that, Blue Cross.
Yeah.
All the other ones, you couldn't do anything. If they go back to that,
Well, there's still Blue Cross out there, and I have Blue Cross, which is nice because so far they've paid for everything. My work even had a policy that says they're not supposed to have anything for transgender for the union. That was put in by the union, and the companies ignored it. I went to see Bell Duran about it before I changed, and he looked at that and he said, "This applies directly under 1964, guideline."
used to be the only way you could go to the University of Minnesota was either through Blue Cross or pay. And it was $400 and some a month back in the 80s and 90s.
That was a lot of money.
Yeah.
More than that now. Yeah. So as far as some of the things go, we'll have to watch because now Trump is talking about not eliminating the health care altogether, but modifying it significantly. We'll see what that comes with because when he was campaigning, he says, "I'm just going to wipe it off altogether." Now he's kind of modifying things. will the real Donald Trump stand up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was still pushing the lady himself into office.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure.
These are the more inflammatory stuff you said.
If we have to worry
Yeah.
so much about him anyways, he's just gonna do whatever his team tells him to do.
Or whatever.
He'll go whatever way yeah, he's gonna go whatever way.
People remember 8 years ago, he was 100% behind Hillary. Most people forget that. He was pretty much a Democrat for a long time and couldn't get anywhere in the party, so he switched parties. Look what he done. So, like I said, will the real Donald Trump stand up? We don't know who he really is because he will tell you anything.
Right.
Like a chameleon.
Pretty much.
Interesting, yeah. I don't remember if it was late spring or early summer where it sounded pretty good. Transportation use
And
he like did an about face on that after a week, and I was wondering what
we
was
talked
to
to.
get pulled.
Yeah.
one state he needed was Illinois. He really needed that, and he said, I'm for LGBTQ people, and he won Illinois, and then the very next state that was up was a real, and then he just switched them totally. And it was, so will the real Donald Trump stand up? Which way are you? He hasn't really played his hand on that yet. We don't know.
But you gotta worry about the guy put in charge of this transition team.
Yeah.
He's never backed down from anything, ever.
Yeah.
That's what
But
we
on the
gotta
other
worry
hand, it still
about,
has to go
Mike
through.
Pence.
I'm sorry, we're new, but we have a 7 o'clock thing, so we have to leave. But is it okay if I just talk about Naomi's thing?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Before we have
Just
to
on
leave.
Naomi's smile.
So we're here representing Hope for Youth, and Naomi couldn't make it, obviously, but she's here virtually. And so if you're not familiar with Hope for Youth, maybe everyone is. Here in Anoka, it's a drop-in center for homeless and other youth that need a place to go between 16 and 23 years old. Naomi's the social worker, the case manager for the LGBTQ youth. Primarily draws from Anoka County, but we're having a LGBTQ community informational meeting on the 29th of November. And so we wanted to invite people to come or invite people that you might think would be benefited by this. And so I have a few flyers if you want to take one. If you don't want to take one, I won't be offended either. But we happen to have a transgender son, so we'd like to participate beyond just this purpose, but it was an excuse to come to our first meeting. Yeah.
How old is he?
He's 19, and so he went to Andover High School and graduated still under a legal name, but they called his name as Eric, and Andover was actually pretty decent. So we're trying to get a little bit more involved in the community, especially with the youth, because there's still a lot of work to be done. I've heard a lot of the youth are LGBTQ. They come to Hope for Youth that their parents aren't understanding, and that they've got kicked out or otherwise, have issues due to who they are. And so we'd love to help, especially if there's anything that can be done with the schools.
I would just like to add on to that when we go to PFLAG, and Liz can attest to this, almost everyone now it's genderqueer or people who are transitioning. We're not seeing a lot of new and gay. It's truly people who are transitioning who are struggling, and so therefore are looking for support. And so there's a lot of young people that need a lot of help. And if things do come to fruition with healthcare and Title IX issues, anything that we can get from support-wise to help with kids in school. I mean, I'm really concerned about, I'll give you an example. Peggy Scott is a monster. She is trying very hard to make it, okay, tell me she's not a monster.
She's not a monster, but let's just say she's not on our side of the law.
Maybe she's monstrous. Maybe not a monster, but just monstrous.
Well,
Okay, her behavior is unacceptable.
Can I just say what this is?
Use does monstrous things.
You remember that there was a law that was never brought to committee, I don't think even, but a bill that came to the Minnesota legislature this summer. And she was one of the sponsors of that. And so we wrote her and said, I can't believe that you were co-sponsor of this ridiculous bill to not let kids.
He didn't write it quite that mean. He said it in a very polite way. He didn't say ridiculous, but
Whatever. But she came back and said that she has a 23-year-old daughter and that she would be afraid to go to the bathroom if men were allowed to use the bathroom.
basically ignorance, totally. Like, I'm sorry, how many more transgender children are assaulted in bathrooms by, not by, like, why would you go to the freaking effort?
Yeah, find one.
Yeah, find one that wanted to go in and peep in a bathroom stall, really. Just find one. And so in any event, I'm really worried about kids. Any community help would be really appreciated.
Is this a resource center or an actual, like?
It's a drop-in center, and so the kids don't stay there. We do have a new facility that's being constructed in Blaine for 12 youth. But kids can come between 2 and 7
Okay,
p.m.
like open doors and upriver.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Exactly. So there is, through the shop clinic in Minneapolis, they have something called Avenues for Homeless Youth, and it is all of the greater Twin Cities area. And so if you have space in your home and you're interested in a host home, next time we'll bring back a bunch of copies of this. Yeah. This is my only copy.
Okay.
So,
Can I take a picture?
yes, please. Yeah, take pictures
Thank you.
and, yeah. Because it's,
Is there a website listed on it?
yes, I believe there is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be so grabby. Didn't
No, I wish I had like a dozen of them, seriously.
The need for housing is huge.
It is. It really is. So,
That
and
is-
it's like foster care if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's emergency. It's helping them get connected to resources, which
This
is
is the one that's all volunteer families, and it's a fairly casual setup, because there are no payments out there available for this. You're doing this out of the goodness of your heart.
Yes.
And you're there to kind of see them through.
right. And the idea is also that through this and also through the shop clinic, if you have the means to do so, even just to donate like paper towels and or little alcohol swabs or a little bit of money. I mean, people go to these resources who have medical care and still need their tea. Or still need a shot. So I know that that's where my extra pennies are going to be going anytime soon. So just a thought.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are we able to post this on our website?
Yeah,
Just wanted to make sure.
and actually, if you find the Hope for Youth website,
Okay,
it's pretty
so
easy. It's
much.
just Hope number 4 Youth. On Monday, there'll be an events page, and they'll also have a Facebook link that can be shared.
So if we can direct people to you, to our.
That'd be great. Yeah, I mean, if there's some way to make the connection, maybe Naomi already knows how to do that. Do you know how to do that, Naomi?
I didn't hear the connection to what?
If we could somehow give them the link to our website, or do you know?
I don't know how to do that, but Diane, I can find out and call you or email you.
Okay.
I also have the virtual copy too, so I mean, if I need to send an email to Liz or put it on the Minnesota Transgender Alliance Facebook group, I will, but either way, we'll get it out to the community.
Okay.
Who would be the best contact for that?
Sweet.
Well, thank you for letting us crash your meeting, and
We'll come back and crash again another
Okay,
time.
good.
thank you.
Yeah, we
Mainly
really
good.
appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Resources is one of the things that we are focused on most here at the group. I know I say that a lot, but it really, really is important to us, and we want to do something to protect the community through that, so.
Unfortunately, this is a growing need. too.
Yeah, especially
You know,
here.
and the youth, what we thought was gonna be the ones that were the lucky ones, not very long ago. We thought, my God, they don't have to deal with all the stuff that some of us older folks have had to deal with, and it looks like there's kind of a continuation now happening, so it's a really big deal.
On our website too, if people need legal counsel, there's also at the University of Minnesota, the third Friday for November and December. So if you guys if anyone there needs some, they will have Phil Duran there, and Out Front Minnesota will be out.
Sweet.
So they're giving free legal advice or insurance advice if people need it. So that would be something that you could do, and that should be on our website, I believe.
Okay.
our link.
Yeah.
So it would be something that you guys could, go, and if people need to get down to you and get some free advice, that would be a great thing to do too.
And we have this weird, wacky connection, not only through Hope for Youth, but through all social, like basically the umbrella for all services for anybody in crisis or homelessness. It comes up through, of all things, the YMCA, which, okay, like don't put too much stock into the CA. It's, oh gosh, what's Alan's organization called again?
I don't know.
Crap.
Anyway, we need to go. We can bring in resources.
We'll bring more resources next time. So we'll bring a lot of resources next time, and we have a real heart for you, so.
Thank you. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Jeff and Carolyn. Appreciate it.
Night.
Bye. See you soon.
Oh, it means I'm a safe person. So if anybody, if I see,
And that's one too.
if anybody, and actually my cousin in DC, who's like 6'5" and a big old bear, he's like all on top of this. He's like, don't put it on if you don't mean it, because I'm going to tackle you if you try and intimidate or hurt. And it isn't just, in my opinion, LGBTQ. It is my Muslim friends. It is my friends of color. You threaten.
And symbols mean nothing unless there's meaning behind them.
Oh yeah, there's meaning behind it.
Because it's cool to wear. When I put it on and I put on my Facebook that I was wearing it, I also put on my Facebook, here is what I am going to do.
Right.
And so
This is what it means.
You can, you can pass it around if you want.
Yeah, it's
I have the meaning on my phone.
Yeah.
Now I just have to find a big one.
Right. Yeah. I
Where did you
them,
get?
so I have quite the
Where did you
collection
get
of
your
ones.
big one?
with that said, it's kind of it's a point of privilege that certain people are in the know about what it means. And so I'm kind of thinking about, maybe I'll wear the safety pin on a heart or something, just to communicate a little more. Because this has been my steep learning curve here for privilege.
It basically means you're a safe person.
Yep.
And you'll be a protective law against anyone who needs it. So I'm gonna take my Kung Fu Ninja things and bust it out. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, sure, also.
No, talk away.
You know what the safety
Oh,
pin
you would
means,
be
right?
sorry.
So what do,
Public speaking is like my hobby, so, I can.
so the other thing we want to talk about was people's reaction to each other. How people are reacting to, say, family members who have voted for Trump. There's a lot of people who have very strong reactions against them. And there goes what?
There goes Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to drive to Branson, Missouri to see the grandparents.
And there's people, the opposite side of it, there are people saying well, we had to put up with Obama for, people have different opinions, different political opinions. And how can you hold that against people for voting for what they believe in a political way? And so what does everyone think about the difference here between the political and the personal and the social, and why they don't understand that, and how are we reacting to it?
I probably have a different curve on everybody else in the room. This is how it works. Right, wrong, or indifferent. And that's kind of what made America what we are today. I know a lot of people don't agree with it, but I also believe that there is checks and balances in place. And like I said, for anything to really go through, it's going to take a little bit of time. I also approach things a little different. My daughter, for one, we got in a discussion about Trump, and she really was all for it. And I brought up some different facts that she didn't realize. I was telling her about one of my hardest things was in changing and transition is why do I want to become a second-class citizen? And she looked at me kind of strangely, and I says, because women used to be. And around the world it's still on. And she says, what do you mean? And I says, most of the laws and most of the rights that women have today were granted in the 1870s, even though the 1864 Act was out there. And I wish I would have brought the list today, because I had a list of them. You realize women couldn't serve in combat until 2013.
Couldn't get a credit card.
You couldn't get a bank account until 1972 in your own name, being a woman. You had to either have your husband or a male figure stand up for you. Now that's hard to believe in today's world. A bank account? You know, that's stuff that's really hard to believe. You still can't drive a car, it's not your reason. Some places you can't show your face. You know, some places are places where you travel around the world, you're still considered a commodity. And you're owned by your husband. Right? So as we move forward, we had the dragon and stuff that, you know, they were evolving the good old days. Well, I don't know if those good old days were so good after all, if you really look back at how they were. And you really never brought America back to those days. So I have a wait and see, and I think there's a lot of panic out there right now. But I think people have got to just kind of step back a little bit. And this is also a reason why you need to vote and follow some of the political stuff that's going on. Even though a lot of people go, I don't care. Well, you not caring may have been the difference between winning and losing. Because it was such a small margin, the swing states especially.
46% of the registered voters did not vote.
Yep.
That's why it's important for you to at least vote for who you need to vote for.
Around 15,000 people voted for the
Harambe.
Harambe. And there's always going to be the people who do the write-in vote thing and vote for something outrageous. I mean, for a while it was Bill Murray. Oh, I know. Some people vote for Bill Murray. And it's whatever. But almost half of the registered voters did not even vote. And I'm sorry, but then they have no right to complain. They have no right to say boo about it.
Some of the demonstrators were asking who they voted for and stuff, and some of them didn't vote.
Oh, I know.
Well, what are they doing? I mean, why are you demonstrating now after the fact? Well, Hillary was supposed to win.
Why are they even entitled to an opinion
If you really
then?
gave that
I mean,
much of a crap, you would have been down there making a difference.
and you can't
Instead of
say,
shutting down I-94. You know what I mean?
yeah.
We've got such a big generational divide right now. I'm going to tell you kind of why. Part of why I'm here is I'm a volunteer with Boy Scouts of America. We have the two really big policy changes, and now we're working on cultural change. And then also we've got this election. And then I have trans youth in my life. And I am the head of our local chapter of Scouts for Equality. So this generational difference we talk about in Boy Scouting all the time because we're an organization that we want people to join, right? And we're seeing that the younger generation coming up, they're not really joiners because there's a strong distrust in institutions. If it's a bigger institution, it doesn't really have a face to it, right? It's kind of it's a scary thing, and who wants to be a part of that? And I'm feeling like voting and being politically involved is being seen as being part of an institution and part of a system that you really can't trust. And then we end up with things turning out bad. And then we erode that trust even further. Is that kind of where things are at with our younger folks? Does that sound
It's always
maybe?
been that way though.
It seems to be more so with this generation coming up. That seems to be kind of the trend. It's much easier to get younger folks to join in on, we are going to do this very specific good thing right now, and we're on it, and it gets done and to the hill, and it's beautiful. But to try to join something bigger, so we talk about this a lot. Yeah, things that are already established, the old way of doing things.
Yeah, I suppose maybe because they're a little more.
So that's something I'm still trying to
myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
My question is it a lack of trust or is it a lack of commitment? Because one of the big things that I see that's going about society is there's a huge lack of commitment to anything. People want to be able to just jump to whatever they want. They don't want to commit and stick to something and go, this is my decision. This is
Well,
what
and
I'm
that started
going with.
happening when our society stopped being committed to
Right.
individuals with, the jobs. We used to be able to work in the same job your whole career,
Right.
and they take care of you at the end, after it's there. So maybe this distrust in institutions is pretty well placed.
My biggest fear is, the NAFTA Act, took a lot of our jobs out of our country. Where I work went from 539 workers back in '99 to, we I think have like 68 now, union workers. Now they're talking about this Pacific Alliance. And that'll make the NAFTA thing look like nothing. I mean, the one thing I don't understand is how come Hillary didn't push them on. You have businesses that are all overseas talking about making America great. How come you didn't bring them back? And you just said, I'm a smart businessman. And everyone bought it. So if he brings all these stuff, again,
already become this, great hope for, father figure. What his flaws on that. Sounds like, yeah, the guy who brings the band back and, like me, like, the people both. I mentioned the father figure thing, and like just all the harassment that's happening, and the difference, obvious difference between Obama and Trump is that, well, nobody ever looked at Obama as, their, daddy, so to speak. Daddy says, I can spit in your face. You and, like, I think a lot of people were just like, fired out of the gates as soon as they heard that, Trump was elected. Yeah. And that lose.
Does anyone else?
Let lose some of the people they didn't like because their daddy won.
It's just creepy.
it is kind of creepy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you hear him, what was it, yesterday or maybe even this morning? He said, don't worry, I'll take care of all of you. Like a father figure. That's something President Obama never said anything like that.
He's going back to the Reagan era.
I
Yeah.
love Obama.
It's just scary when he says stuff like that. You're like, man. Something you expect to hear out of Putin.
We're friends.
Fascinating that, isn't it? How similar things sound.
Absolutely.
So, the chances of Trump not being president in 110 days is almost zero. So with that knowledge in mind, what can we do as a group to help each other when all these changes start to come about?
Get
Yeah,
a giant
they come
blanket
about.
fort.
Pick your
And
fights.
Giant blanket fort.
gallons of ice cream.
And coloring books. I'm hiding.
Like, seriously, like the
Yeah.
things that the two folks who came in tonight brought in, like, this is gonna be more important than ever for us to be a unified community.
Absolutely.
LGBT, unifying with women's movements, with racial movements, like, we need to band together as anybody who's not, and no offense to anything here, anybody who's not a white male needs to band together. Not against the white males, but against this ridiculous thing that just happened.
It's
Like,
more of a
Cis white males, though.
banding.
cis white males, even, yeah.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
There you go.
Let's get that.
But I hear you on the blanket fort to the extreme. We seriously need to love on each other. There was a gentleman, an older gay man, who fights depression, and we took him out for pie and conversation because it was the first time he'd gotten out since the election.
Yeah.
Maybe the one benefit
It was
to this time, though, is all of us saying, we want to help each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, not
Exactly.
just us trans folk helping trans folk. Like,
It's everybody helping
us banding
everybody
together.
else.
Not necessarily on I-94, but like, seriously, like, doing things that are going to make a difference. How do we get together and do that? You know, that's what I want this group to be a part of. You know, I want us to always, the biggest focus is always going to be how do we help each other through our transitions, granted. That's what I formed this group for. But, you know, in a time like this, to discuss the bigger picture like that is important and to really keep that in focus.
Well, and as much of a problem as this is now, imagine how bad it's going to be after January.
I think the best thing that the group can do is just continue to move forward doing what we're doing and increase the resources as much as we can.
And not
Keep
hide.
reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
We can't hide and run away and not have come to the groups like this, because these groups, as little as we think we are, still are a force of, you know, there's still another election in 2 years. People forget that. That's where your checks and balances come in. You know, and it's time to really start banding together, like you said, and helping out. If we can help here, it's great. If we can help a community that's with us, because then they'll turn around and help us.
How can we help our rural youth? Because we are at least in the cities and we can get around and make contact. What is,
Part of that's knowledge.
yeah, how can we?
Remember that article I
go
I-
out?
I gave to you guys, and you guys read that it was really pretty pathetic. It was about me at work and how a congressperson actually took it for their political gain in a newspaper. What was the name of the newspaper? I don't even remember. McLeod County or
I know
McLeod.
McLeod County, that's Hutchinson.
Yeah, it's like McLeod Times or something. It's on.
Uh-huh.
And we had a discussion about that, and we need to be able to correct some of those things that they were stating in there. They misgendered me. They've done a few other things in the article. And again, it's knowledge. That's what these people out in the rural area get, is what one anti-trans person put down. They never got the rebuttal out. So,
That's what you're saying with the media.
well, but you can also work the media to your favor.
And I think we can do that with this.
Right.
Because we talk about the good discussions, we have the really good conversations and that kind of stuff. And this is getting it out there, us outside just us. It's, I mean, you post it on Facebook and YouTube, or just privately in the group, the stream?
I published this on, it was on Facebook, and I also put it on Twitter,
Okay.
but, so just a link to it so
Yeah,
people can.
but still, it's out there, and it's going to be more visible, and the people that need to see it are going to see it. Whether they find it a week later or a day later or whatever, but they're going to find it, and they're going to say, hey, this is where I need to be, and then we can then help them. Hopefully.
Talk about mental health resources. Because all of our kids have been hospitalized this year. And you mentioned, I guess, every psychiatric bed in Minnesota, Wisconsin, North and South Dakota is filled.
It's devastating.
Yeah. And there has been a shortage of especially pediatric young adult beds in psychiatric bed. But I think there's a shortage across the board. Is there something we can do to advocate for those needs, or is there something else we can add to our resources, or, because that's a huge need. Like I'm thinking primarily of my kiddo, who, am I talking too much about their own stuff? We have conversations around physical transition stuff. And at this point, they've come to the conclusion that even if I did that, it wouldn't fix it. So, so of course, I'm mom, I want to take care of it. But how do we get mental health services that we need, like Reclaim over in St. Paul? They're going through financial difficulties. They've lost another of their staff people there. I don't know if you're familiar with Reclaim, but they're an LGBT counseling center in St. Paul, just off of the light rail.
Could you bring some of that information in for us?
Surely, yeah.
Because that's again, a resource that we might want to have on our knowledge of.
Yeah, because, next month I'm supposed to bring youth protection resources to our Boy Scout volunteers, because believe it or not, we're trying to create safe space and safe haven for kids. And so we need all these resources, and so I'm digging, but I mean, the mental health stuff, not just for LGBT folks, across the board, we don't have enough resources, and it looks like it's just, the need is skyrocketing right now because everybody is feeling pretty jumbled up and pretty scared. So,
Well, I don't know if it was brought up that you thought that, today's trans youth was at more of an advantage, but now maybe not so much.
and I think maybe worse because they thought things were getting pretty good.
Yeah.
And then the carpet ripped up around it.
Well, like hearing like what you shared, Rhonda, about what happened to you and your business and your kids and stuff. I mean, when you got done with that, I mean, my initial instinct was to say thank you. Thank you for going through that. Because hopefully it made a difference on the line. Not having to have to deal with that, but the fact that you stayed true to who you were, and you know what I mean, and kind of took the bullet, if you will.
It wasn't about me, it was about my kids and what they had to go through.
Yeah, I understand.
And that was horrible. Horrible what I put them through.
Yeah,
Absolutely horrible.
I watch what he goes through, and I don't like it. I don't.
You don't want to ever have your kids have to go through that.
No.
It scars them for life.
I mean, I feel helpless enough. I can imagine how you would have felt.
And I've got a gay daughter, and I couldn't imagine her have to go through that.
Yeah, just.
She was very young then, she was just a baby, but the other two stayed, and my nephews.
I mean, and that's the thing, it's like, I don't want him.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You guys too.
I mean, he just wants to do, normal everyday
I
stuff.
can tell you, small towns haven't changed.
No.
They remain the same. That's the way they want it.
I
They
think
want their
they're
isolationists,
isolated.
that's what they want.
That's what I told him. I said, if I were you, get somewhere that's a little better suited to you, because we're not where you need to be.
No.
We're not at all.
This group could not be, this group really needs to grow. It needs to be large. We need to get everybody, our voice needs to be heard.
Well, I don't think we're going away. So the other end of that is it kind of reminds us, the gay and lesbian movement back in the 70s, 80s. And now they're starting to be more accepted, and now we're the new ones that they're, and society is afraid of things that they don't understand. And I really see that people now that who are gay and lesbian, they're not having it as like even they said, they're not seeing the groups that they used to see. Now it's more the trans people, that are having the harder issues. So I think the fight is not over, but I think we are going to still make some progress. I think there's going to be some setbacks. I think there's people that, that will never understand. I'm hoping that as society keeps changing and getting older, that, some of the farther thinking is going to go away. But again, knowledge is most of it, and they use the creepy things, during the election, one of the comics was, you were afraid of somebody who wore a wig getting in the bathroom and molesting women, yet you voted for one. You voted for somebody who molested women. I mean, it was brought up during the election, and probably he wears a wig. So, but yet people still voted for him.
Yeah, but they didn't confuse them with gender.
Yeah.
That's what the difference is. we knew what gender he was. And that's okay. It's okay for men to do that to women.
Yeah, see, and again, that goes back to when it was okay.
Yeah,
It's not okay
exactly.
anymore, but,
Make America great again.
yeah, so you can do that?
Yeah.
It's not a wig though. Jimmy Kimmel went like this to it.
He styles his hair
You know-
same way his mother did.
If we accept a plurality of genders in our society, then it's just gonna shake people up so much and they won't know who's on the bottom anymore. It's just gonna
The
make
fact
them
of the
so
matter is they
confused.
want things to be
So
black and
confused.
white.
Who's in charge and
That's
who's
just-
on the bottom, you know, it's just gonna mess them up. So they're
So
gonna
one
fight
comment-
really hard to do it.
One comment that I want to go back to that Diana kind of mentioned is, and we talked about earlier in the group a little bit, was about some of the lesbian and gay groups kind of not being as active. I think one of the big reasons for that was that there was marriage equality. There was a bunch of different things where the need for those groups sort of
Dissipated.
fizzled a little bit, didn't go away, but people could go out and about freely and not feel the danger and have as many needs, so to speak, as they did just 10 years ago or whatever. Well, that's in question again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So now groups like,
Scary.
you know, lesbian and gay groups are going to be more important again. Yeah, I think then you'll see like things, some things like that flourish again a little bit because unfortunately, like we need each other really, really badly. So that's kind of why I wanted to go back to that. Like we're going to be really important in the future, but then there's going to be other groups that it's going to be really important to partner with in the future too.
Yeah,
Because there's an election in 2
Both
years.
Rhonda and Ann have been saying growth and kind of like, I don't want to say it
Expansion.
this way, divide and conquer.
We need to
You know what I
encompass
mean?
everybody. We
Yeah.
have to get our voice out there. We've got to let them know that there's ramifications if they try to change things.
Mm-hmm.
And the ramifications will be in 2 years. We got to let them know that. It worked before, it'll work again. It's important.
Because America wasn't great before.
It wasn't. If you really look back in the
It
history
never
of
was.
everyone saying America was great once before. If you
Maybe
really
for
go
the Native
back-
Americans before we showed up, it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe
that was
great
great
then.
It
I don't know.
was great for the white guy.
We have
That
had
was
some
it.
moments of greatness. But we've never had this idea
All
that we
across the
are
board.
the greatest on the earth, you know, that's, no. But yeah. We just-
A lot of people are harking back to the 1950s when the middle class was very close to some of the higher tiered people, in part because manufacturing was so in demand. So it was easy to get factory jobs that paid very well, even compared to some engineering management type jobs that were there. But a lot of that really came from the fact that out of World War II, that most of the industrial base in the rest of the world had been destroyed by each other. And the United States was left largely untouched. And so we became the factories for all of the countries whose factories had been destroyed. And it took them several decades for them to build that back up again. But now that they have, it's really hard to see how we could get back to those levels without some kind of war that would somehow destroy their factories and not ours. So that's not a realistic goal to aim for, but it's something that people don't really understand that history of. And I mean, it's not just a thing on the right, it's also on the left. When people say, oh, things were great in the 1950s and there was equality because they had a really high tax rate. Well, it wasn't just a really high tax rate because tax rates are also influenced by the types of deductions that they allowed at the time, and also the tax rate was for the very highest tier ones, and there were ways around those things. And so people do look back at those times as kind of a panacea.
But there was a lot of oppression of women.
There was a lot of oppression of women, and there really was a circumstance that is unlikely to ever be seen again. So it's some people at the time try to reach back to those times, and anyone who, because as circumstances change, the people who are less beneficial are going to see now as worse. Anyone who sees it as better just hears about that. Maybe if they don't know what it was like before, they don't know if anything were better or worse back then. If I were to
romantic notion is what it is.
I wouldn't want to be transported back to the 1950s.
No.
I mean, even if I were trans, I wouldn't want to go back to the 1950s. It just doesn't seem like an interesting time to live. It may have been easier to get it may have been easier to buy a house without having a full education, but I don't think that would be worth it.
Told them you were trans, they could put you in an institution. It
Mhm.
happened a lot
Right.
back then.
Yeah.
Or being thrown in jail for being a female impersonator.
That's right.
Just view this the mistaken product of miscegenation. In the south and the north, and probably, yeah, as a mixed race person. Yeah.
I mean, even a pregnant woman that wasn't married back then, I thought they would do.
Well, yeah,
As a
people don't realize it was 76, that women, before that, if you took a maternity leave or let go, most of them couldn't go back to their job. Hard to believe, isn't it? In today's world.
Even a divorced woman back then was seen as a
shunned.
whore.
Yep. Yep.
And it was shameful for me as a little kid, as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old. She'd tell people that she was divorced. You know.
Right. People forget, some of the things that our society did have to go through and to change things.
Yeah, if they were divorced back then, they remarried real quick.
Really?
Yeah, it seems like had differences back then, we're seeing with humanities or yes, questions.
And the word McCarthyism doesn't exactly sound as something great.
Oh, they want to bring that. We're going to talk way too much again. Yeah, they want to bring back the House on Americans community.
Boy, Giuliani and McCarthy? What?
Oh, I hope you guys studied your history.
No.
History test later tonight.
No, the Republicans have done a brilliant job. They slashed education, so nobody knows what the F is going on. And now they can do it all over again, and people are confused. And,
They've gerrymandered Congress. We can't even consider getting that back to 2020.
2020.
When they can redistrict it.
But yeah, the cuts to education, we are seeing the results of that.
And
Yeah.
thank you for saying that, because the redistricting happens on the surveys that are done, the census. Think of all the people who don't fill out those census.
Yeah.
That's what changes the politics, because when they come out, that's
The
all.
redistricting is done by whoever's in charge at the
Correct.
time.
Yep, right.
Do you
And
see some of them
those-
lines in some of them larger cities?
Yeah.
That, it just, you go, oh, that can't be so.
Yeah.
Some districting where
Yeah.
it's like, one district was basically like along the highway.
Yeah.
Just spaghetti, it's just
Crazy.
crazy.
It's sort of like.
And then that one little district, there's one poll place in the whole district for people to go vote in. Yeah.
And
But the people most likely to be missed in the census are the.
Got to admit, the
those-
Republicans are extremely brilliant.
Yeah,
And you got to just,
and
you have to envy what they've done with the system. It's just incredible. They're brilliant.
well, look at how Florida became a power state just because of the censuses and all the people who moved into Florida. I mean, before the 80s and air conditioning, no one wanted to live there. One, you have hurricanes that destroyed you, and two, it was extremely hot and muggy. Well, air conditioning taking care of the hot and muggy, so now people are moving down there. And the building, construction-wise, is a lot better than it used to be, so most of your homes will, withstand it. So you can move down there, you can live down there, and with the win from hardly any electoral votes, suddenly become a power in the elections. And that's all done by the census.
Yeah.
Which people don't understand again. But these are the little things in politics that do matter, and it matters a lot. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Fill out your census forms.
Yeah.
Fill them out. Represent.
Census form. Again, history lesson when we get home.
No,
isn't
They
it?
sure can.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
are there
I
any
think there's
others?
three states that do
Maine,
that.
Maine's the other one, yeah.
I thought there were three. Are there only two that do that?
As far as I know, that's two, yeah. They just pop up.
It's.
Yeah, Maine was stripey on the map, Nebraska was solid red, because even though they could split, they didn't split. Oh, I know what I'm
Maine did
thinking of.
split.
Maryland has just voted to be part of the compact, so that once we have enough states that join the compact, they will throw all their electoral votes to the winner of the popular vote. That one, this election,
And
of
then
course.
hopefully the District of Columbia will become a state. Like that.
I don't know that the Republicans would like that very much, so that's probably
A
not
lot of
happening.
people
Is it
there,
still
a lot
happening?
of,
Insisted that the US, DC was a state.
Yeah,
because he
State
saw
of New
across-
Columbia, that would be pretty cool.
can only hope.
Fill out your census
I like
forms.
the license.
Does Liz have
plates.
anything
Really
else
don't
on
know
your
how
agenda
to-
to talk
I
about?
don't know if they still have those licenses.
Well, it depends how much time people have.
Yeah, District of Columbia taxation.
Yes,
Do people want to talk about a little bit more about some of this stuff?
Uh-huh.
I just have one question.
Okay.
Has anyone else seen or dealt with any violence in their workplace since the election?
Is there something you didn't tell us?
Your mom already knows.
What? What?
Anybody else? No? I had to literally break up a fight after the election, day after, between two gentlemen that I work with who were literally throwing punches. And I had to get in the middle of it because I was the only manager on the floor.
Are they still there today?
One is, one isn't, because he was the instigator.
That's
He has been let
incredible.
go. So,
Jessica works at the Mall of America. She had to call security 3 times because adults were screaming very nasty things at children on the lights. Had to call security 3 times.
oh my
What the
gosh.
heck?
Right, right?
Why
Because children are so guilty. Yeah. So deserving of that, yeah.
So one thing is I've been noticing there are people I know on Facebook, and some of them have been writing posts about taking people off who have been
Deleting people.
because they voted for Trump. And one person saying that she cut off her only remaining grandmother because she voted for Trump. And so what's your reaction to that?
I personally have not deleted anyone from Facebook due to their political views because everyone is entitled to their own view and you can't push your agenda on someone else. But that being said, I have unfollowed several people because of their irate nature and the negativity in the things that were said.
Mm-hmm.
So I have unfollowed people, but I have not deleted anyone. Even though I wanted to, I didn't because that makes me just as bad as them.
What if it were a family member?
It was.
It was a family, okay. What about other people? If you had a family member saying, I would be not necessarily being magnanimous about not just voting for Trump, but maybe being, I don't know, how would you describe it?
Throwing your vote away by voting for Gary Johnson.
Yeah, or that. I've seen other people who do the same thing, which
Gary,
is
parentheses, Pothead Johnson.
anger people who voted for third parties. I've seen that too.
But on the other hand,
You get all in front of me then, because I voted third party. In
We're
fact, right now, it would
state. I love
destroy
it.
the political system in order for that to never happen again. Because the last people you should blame for this are the people who do not believe in the two parties that have destroyed everything.
I
And that's all I'm gonna
completely
say about
agree.
that.
I,
By everyone
I
voting
can
for Trump or
respect the
Hillary,
third
you are
party vote.
continuing this to happen. That's all I'm gonna say.
I-
That means you want this to happen.
I could surely respect a third party vote way over not voting at all. Yeah.
It's your
Because you
opinion
get- you gotta
on who
take-
you
you
get
gotta
to vote
take
for. If you want to vote for a third party, I don't think it's a waste of vote. You voted for the person that you wanted to see elected. As far as, the people who don't vote, those are the ones I'm more upset with.
Absolutely.
We're lucky in this country, you don't have to vote, and that you also get a vote.
Yeah.
In Australia, you have to go to your voting place and at least sign in. If you don't, it's
Really?
$15,000.
Whoa.
You know, $15,000
Didn't know
for just driving down there and signing your name, well, now I'm here. And they give you a ballot. You don't have to put it in the machine or fill it out. But if you're gonna go through all that, you pretty much do.
What state is that where they automatically register people to vote when they become age
Oh,
18?
voter driver,
Yeah.
yeah, if you get a driver's license, you're on.
Yeah, what state is that?
That's like a
Northwest,
horrible
isn't
thing,
it?
you know,
That's a great thing.
We're people on the rolls.
They may be
Our
more
state
obligated to vote if
registration is
they.
awesome.
So as far as
Did you
voting,
guys know we have state aid registration?
yes, and you can also vote.
Did you
early.
know that you can vouch for your friends to vote?
Yep.
They can come to the poll with you and you could say, yes, I know this person, they live at blah, blah, blah. You can vouch for them in the state of Minnesota. We
Yep.
have
That
the
happened to me
most
10 years
open
ago.
polls of the country. We're the state people look to when they try to straighten out.
I think that's really
their
good,
voting stuff.
especially the
Yeah.
same day registration, because a lot of people, they don't really think about it. Like, oh, I'm not going to check the box or whatever. And then I need to vote.
Now, when my divorced mother went to the polls to cast her vote for him to govern, I'm little tiny going along with her, and we're just like, yeah, women have the vote. I'm exercising my right to vote, and I'm right there next to my mother, and a great big Republican lawyer blocked her way. Not legal anymore, but back then it was. She was challenged in her right to vote. She left the polling place in tears.
Did she vote? Doesn't it seem weird that there's so much anger and fear in politics nowadays?
It's like muscles. If you don't exercise your rights, you lose them. You know, you just have to keep going.
I voted for him. That's my first time I could vote.
Probably familiar to you too.
So how are people going to handle if you're going to holiday events like Thanksgiving or coming up later, Christmas type things or New Year's, when you come across people who voted for Trump?
I just said, you know, I've already done it in my family because my dad voted for Trump. My daughter voted for Trump, and I just thanked them for the fact that they voted anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't like it, but it was who they wanted, so they got what they wanted. And we'll see what happens. Again, at least they exercise their right as an American to vote.
I'm going to stay out of the conversation unless it directly affects his rights.
Exactly.
Well, my question is, I know with social media now, everyone's opinion is out there, and the majority of the people out there will say, I voted for this person, or you know who they're going to support. But do you guys actually physically go to someone in your family and go, who did you vote for?
No.
No.
Because to me, like, that's how I was brought up.
But everybody knows how their Uncle Albert voted anyway.
The thing is, I don't. I mean, I honestly, I don't know how anyone in my family,
had an uncle.
I don't know how my parents
Oh,
voted. My dad asked me once, and I told him I wasn't going to tell him. Because it's none of his business.
And I think that's actually for the best because it does keep the politics out of the family.
So,
Yeah.
I try to stay out of it.
Exactly.
And the right to keep your
for
vote
me-
private is a very important right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Absolutely.
for me,
Like, the law
it may
here,
be
they
like a
vote
bottom
not
now,
be
but
bought.
I'm not even concerned with anything coming up at holidays. And if it does, it does.
Right.
You know, I can walk away from
I
it.
was going to say, I'd
I'd say I can
room.
just go into another room, or I can walk out the door, walk outside myself.
My kids told me who they were going to vote for, and I just told them, good, you're voting. That's all I'm concerned about.
Right.
Oh, we've been told that they'll give us the money to make the drive down to Branson, Missouri for Thanksgiving, and that when we come, the kids will be misgendered and called the wrong names. And, yeah.
No.
And
Gosh, not a hard decision there.
right.
So,
Like,
on Thanksgiving at our house.
Yeah. That's what I said, unless it comes around to somebody, trying to say that he doesn't have rights or he shouldn't have the rights
Yeah.
that he should, that's the only reason I get involved. Because now, like I said, at the end of the day, I could give a crap who you voted for, but you just now made it personal. And so now I'm invested in the conversation and may God have mercy on your soul. You know what I mean?
Well,
So,
and like, it's just,
but I'll tell you, this is the first, like, there's been so many times, I've voted every election since I was 18. And every single one. And this is the first time I was literally physically ill and fearful for my children.
Yep.
First time ever.
Any party that governs through fear and intimidation,
Sick to my
that's what we
stomach.
have to worry about.
Felt wretched.
It doesn't feel like a democracy, you know?
It doesn't.
No, most of the women at my work come up and told me that they voted for Trump and Trump won. You think that was coincidence?
See, and here's the other thing about the whole election and dealing with people's frustrations and angers. I don't care who you voted for. You voted. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
I voted for who I voted for, and it's my business. But if you are going to get in my face and rub in, oh, my candidate won, nah, 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 you're going to get decked in the face. Plain and simple.
All I told them is, well, why you voted?
Yeah.
And they looked at me and was like,
Some people get pretty pushy with it.
really?
Oh,
And I
it's-
said, yeah, you voted, okay. That's how the system works.
Yeah.
It feels really bad, though, when people are saying, get over it. I've been having to deal with those conversations.
Yep.
And women, mommy-type women are really good at this part. It's part of that whole B-Girls training or something. But they're just so good at trying to make you feel real small and you know, the bigger person would just move on. This is, after all, our system. Yeah.
What
And
is the
this came
most-
from a woman whose
Yeah.
kid was in the hospital. I brought them food. I, listened to them go on and on about the issues that affect their family with seizures and everything. I told her today, you know what, our kids have been in the hospital too this year. We don't feel safe right now. You're telling us to move past it. Can't move past it. This is not.
It's not that kind of a conversation.
The terms
Yeah.
that are used, because I mean, to me, move past it and get over it are very strong terms. It should be, let's work through it. Let's
Yes.
That's
accept
completely
that it's gonna
different.
happen and let's work through it. And I think that's where, people might in the back of their heads be thinking that, but your first reaction is just get over it. I mean, it's done. There's nothing you can do about it now. Move forward. And by moving forward, it means go with it, grow with it, learn from it, and,
Determine
do
itself.
something to make it work.
So it's about 7:40, so I kind of want to wrap things up. But I want to make one more comment before we go. And that is, there was something mentioned earlier in the evening about how when it comes to social media and internet, we look up what we want to see. Now, just a few minutes ago, we brought up the whole Facebook things that are following people. If we unfollow all the people that we don't like, or unfriend people that we don't like, we don't see the things that they post and we can't speak out against it. Part of the reason I want to talk about this tonight is because I want us to speak out against it. If someone who says they're your friend or your family member on Facebook says something against transgender people, against people of a different race, against anybody who is not a straight white male American, I think, personally, we shouldn't put up with it. Now, this is just my opinion. I'm not telling everybody in the group to go out there and refriend all the people that they don't like and then go attack them when they post something like that. But if you don't say something, then it's okay, isn't it? We can't let the world assume that it's okay.
Valid point.
You can't just be silent.
So if you ignore the hate, it doesn't go away. It's not like a bully in school.
It's almost condoning.
It's saying, it's okay for you to hate people like me. I'm going to ignore that fact so that things won't change. No, things need to change. They need to change in a hurry because our kids need to go through a better life than we went through, for those of us who are not children anymore. For those of you who are, I want your life to be better than mine was. Badly.
Yeah.
You deserve it. Speak. Act. Go back to this group. Join other groups. Be active in your world. Because without that, it doesn't change. And people like Trump will continue to get elected. So go out and speak out. That's all I have.
Nicely put. Thank you.
So come back in 2 weeks. We'll still be here.
Brianna for president 2020.
Would you like to get the world on? I would get assassinated in 0.2 seconds. You would not.
Depends on who your vice president is.
And I would get just angry.
The minute that she takes away
Say something
ketchup,
bad.
the world will get pissed
Yeah,
off.
I
All
would
right, now
say
come on.
first action will be no ketchup in the United States. I'll build a wall to keep it out. And then someone will shoot
Can I
me.
give a little tiny ad?
Yes.
So I told you, I work with, I'm a volunteer. I do it for the love. I'm with the Boy Scouts. We changed the policies. We don't have the ban on LGBT votes. I am a crew advisor for venturing. Venturing is for all genders. What we desperately need now to continue our culture change, now that we've had our policy change, is to have representation among our adult leaders. If you like blanket forts, if you like singing around a campfire, we can lead you. So, and especially, I'm connected with folks as our chapter lead. We can find you units that will love on you, that will appreciate the gifts and the talents that you have to bring. It will put you in touch with young people where you can help mentor and guide and smooth the way. We would just love to have you on.
Do you have
And
information?
it's so much fun. I can give you all the information you want.
We bring in resources, we love that.
Okay.
50% of our mission is to be a place for
Yeah,
resources.
yeah, because,
I mean that.
time to stop being invisible.
Yes.
We gotta be there, we gotta, show our kids that the world does look like this.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. That's awesome. Thank you to everybody who continues to show up too. I love you.
We love you too.
One meeting. Such a huge.
It is true.
Actually, you know, Care for New Families, have you ever been?
Well,
I guess they do a monthly meeting. It was huge.
I know, I
went
keep
a couple
getting
months ago, and
told to
it-
go and I haven't yet. I feel bad.
I was-
I'm very guilty.
Oh, it was a little intimidating
Was
to
it?
walk into a great, big, huge trip like that. So,
One last announcement for everyone. At PFLAG, I met somebody there who came who's named Rainey, who's starting an AA group that's geared towards LGBT people, and it hasn't started yet, and it's going to be starting soon. Anyone who's interested, I got a whole bunch of flyers, and I'll leave them out. It's called LGBTQAA Queers and Crackpots.
queers and crap.
I love
I
it.
like the motif.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I'll leave this here by there for anyone who's interested.
Thank you so much. And thank you for taking care of the video stuff, because I'm too stupid to do.
All right, we're gonna talk about.
Yep. Okay, well then follow me. Okay.
Oh
my gosh, I can't.
Thanks everyone who joined us, and we'll see you next time.
So my kiddo is 21 and my.
Oh, I saw that.
And I put a question mark, like, what are you talking about? And then, so somebody, then I see. Kim and my.
Not yet.
They both kind of commented on him, so I kind of didn't feel like I needed to comment at the guy. But then at the bottom of it, like, I don't support it. And I figure, I didn't, like, I don't know, like,
You're not
you know, I just thought that it didn't have to respond and then everybody else has to act. To me, that's kind of what you guys do. I am very.